back to episode 67 of On the Wild. I'm your host, Riley Keenan. With me, as always, Anuj Bhaskar. The NBA Finals are about to be underway at the time this video will release. The conference finals just came to a close. Obviously, the Heat and the Celtics went to battle in a 7-game series. And on the other side of it, the Warriors and Mavericks went to 5. I guess we'll start there, as it was, the series that ended pretty quickly. And it's kind of what, some people expected. I had the Warriors winning in 6. But what were your takeaways from that series?
I had Mavericks in 7, so that was completely wrong. But the analysis that I gave wasn't necessarily wrong. Like, Dallas had a lot of open shots throughout the series, and they just missed shots, which allowed Golden State to get out in transition, do what they do, get the open three. And once Dallas committed to the three, they were able to get open dunks with, Looney, Wiggins. So I think that Dallas got all the looks that they were able to get, but they just didn't capitalize. Game 2, obviously, blowing that lead. And if they were to win that game, going back to Dallas at 1-1 with all the momentum, all the pressure would have been on Golden State in those games. So maybe that would have made it a different series. But I think this overall was a success for Dallas. I think Doncic played overall, pretty well. I think Dinwiddie, Brunson, kind of disappointed. Dinwiddie did play well in Game 5 in the closeout game. But overall, I think those two could have played better throughout, and the role players all around could have played better as well. But on Golden State side, they just took advantage of, every opportunity that they got on the defensive side, and, taking advantage of it on offense with all the firepower that they do have, getting those open threes and, hitting those shots. So, credit to them. They're making their 6th final in the last 8 years. So this isn't new to them, but, credit to them for getting the job done in, a respectable 5 games.
Yeah. I mean, you hit every note that I was going to touch on. I mean, Luka played great. There's only so much you can do in that scenario. And as good as Brunson and Dinwiddie were at times, the three of them could never really get going at once. And that is what kind of hurt them. Obviously, they have quite a bit of depth, and guys did step up. But like you said, Game 1's the perfect example of just having a plethora of open shots and not being able to hit it. As much as we can talk about the Warriors defense, Dallas shot themselves in the foot at a lot of times in this series. And it just shows, like, Brunson, I think, can be a great number 3 guy. I think Dinwiddie's another guy that can be a great number 3, but I don't think either can be a number 2. And I think we all know that. They need another piece to be able to make that, or, to take that leap to the next step. And I think a guy like Zach LaVine who can create his own shot would be a great move. I don't know how feasible that is, but someone like Ayton is someone I'd really look at. Obviously, you can see Gobert as well, but the youth that Ayton has and how he hasn't been utilized enough, especially, on Phoenix, he doesn't get a lot of play calls. I think we're on Dallas, he'd be a heavy hitter. He's the guy they'd look to at, the number 2. So I think that could be a big move. But at the same time, you have to look at this series as a success. No one expected the Mavericks to make it this far. To be able to squeak out a win in Game 4 was massive. They could have won Game 1, and they could have even won Game 5. It was a very close game, but the Warriors are good closers. They know what they're doing. So you got to give kudos to them. But at the same time, you got to be hopeful and optimistic if you're in Dallas right now. And if you're a free agent, that's got to be where you're looking. I mean, to be able to play with Luka has got to be incredible. You're going to get the ball in a good spot. That you're going to be the number 2 guy on the team because they need it. And I think it's just, it's Dallas. There's no income tax. It's a great city to live. It's nice and warm. It's a good spot. But on the other side of the ball, the Warriors played great. The way they defended Luka was very intelligent. I think the question going into the series was, are they going to let him do him and focus on everybody else, or are they going to close in on him and let everybody else shoot? It was kind of a mix of both. But for the most part, it was, let's zone in on Luka. Let's not let him shoot. Let's not let him do anything. And he had great games. There were a lot of games where he shot poorly. He dribbled a little too much, and they were just hounding him. It's tough. It's tough when you can't create your own shot in a lane, and you have to dump it off. And when the guys aren't as talented, when the roster's not as deep, it's tough to win those games. So kudos to the Warriors defense, and, Clay with a massive Game 5. It was nice to see him put up 32. And then, I mean, you can't talk enough about Stephen Curry. I mean, the guy had a great series, but also, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, they played great as well. But yeah, the Warriors winning in 5, not a shock. I mean, it would have been nice to see the series go a little bit longer, but it's tough. It's tough when you're in the situation of the Mavericks. and the Warriors are just ready to go. This is a different season for them to have everybody back. It just means so much more. So the Warriors move on to the finals. And obviously, we flip on over to the Eastern Conference Finals. We had the Heat against the Celtics, who went to 7 games, an absolute battle. The last couple of games were great. Early on in the series, it was a bit of a weird start. I mean, it's kind of what the playoffs were at this point, just weird games, blowout. Let's have a battle. But yeah, I mean, when you look at that series, you start off with the Marcus Smart impact, not having him game 1, the Heat blow him out of the water. You get him back for game 2, the Celtics blow them out of the water. It was kind of weird because then Smart came out again, the Heat got the win. So it was like, oh, maybe the Heat are the team. They're ready to go. They know how to stop these guys. The Celtics won that game without Smart. So it was like, are they good enough to be able to win without him? And then they get him back and the Heat win. So it kind of went all over the place. You didn't really know where it was going to go. The Heat win game 6, ascended to 7, and we can't talk enough about Jimmy Butler. If you had a question about if he was a superstar before, you don't now. The guy's insane. He was putting up Michael Jordan numbers, probably his kid. I mean, I saw that conspiracy theory video. You got to see it if you haven't seen it. It is whack how like bang on it is with timing. But nevertheless, what a series from the Heat it was. But Boston just took over in the end. Their defense, shined brightly. I think it's one of the best defenses we've ever seen in the league. Obviously, it's the best this season. But I think what was really important to me was seeing Tatum, step up and having Brown solidified as that number 2. Where going into this year, it was like a 1-2 punch. They're both going to be together. They're both going to put up 18 to 20 shots. Whereas now it's looking like Tatum's the guy and Brown's the guy that's going to, step up massively and be that number 2. He's not taking as many shots as he would have been before. But I think that's kind of smart the way they have it going. They're not forcing shots; they're taking open ones. But what were some of your takeaways from that series?
Just started off with the Jimmy Butler shot, the 3-pointer at the end of the game. I think that was the right play. Go ahead and try to win the game rather than trying to tie it, because you also have to think that Jimmy Butler played all 48 minutes of that game. If let's say he did go in for a layup and let's say he made it, that's a tie game.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe Boston wins the game because it's a tie game. Boston will get the last shot. And if they don't make it, you go to overtime and play 5 more minutes. At that point, he's probably burnt out. 7 games into a series, playing all 48, coming off a 45-point performance in game 6. So I don't really understand all the criticism that he got, because if he made it, he would have been the hero. And the Heat wouldn't have been in that situation without him. Like, he was the sole reason that they won game 6. And he was the sole reason that they were in game 7. So going to the Heat first, I thought that considering their injuries, Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry wasn't necessarily healthy. Jimmy Butler as well, missing the second half of one of the games with his knee. I think considering all of that, I wouldn't consider this a disappointment, going 7 games with Boston, who has been the best team in the NBA since the new year. I thought that was a pretty good showing by them. Maybe they go ahead and make another move in the offseason to try to improve the roster, maybe add in another star, who knows. But, they have a pretty good roster that's set in place. But I do think they need that one more piece. And going over to Boston, I think their defense really showed in this series. Ime Udoka has slowly become one of my favorite people in sports, when looking at coaches and players. Because he's one of the guys. He's one of the players. He understands what these players are going through, but he also commands respect from the players. I think he's a perfect mix of that player's coach, but also like that, I don't want to say authority figure, because that kind of makes it sound bad, but he's, he commands their respect, but at the end of the day, he is one of them. He is a former player as well. So he kind of understands what they're going through. And he's turned this roster around from, that finesse X and O's offensive team that they were with Brad Stevens to now they're the best defensive team in the NBA, like you said, one of the best defensive teams we've ever seen. And I think considering what era they play in, where it's very offensively centric, the game leans more towards the offensive side. To play this level of defense, I think is very impressive. So I would agree with that. And Tatum and Brown kind of solidify this. The whole team knows their role. Which I think is great, because you have your 2-headed monster in Tatum and Brown, but then you have guys like Smart, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Al Horford, who, by the way, got $5 million for making the finals, and we'll get another 7.5, assuming that they win, if they were to win the NBA title, which is awesome. And everybody knows their role. I think this is a perfect built team, and I think, they finally got over the hump of, they were 0-6 in their last six closeout games to go to the NBA Finals. Finally getting over that on the road in Miami, I thought was very impressive. So we'll make our finals picks later, but I have a great feeling about Boston.
Yeah, and I like the point that you just made it there, but they stressed it a lot in those post-game interviews of getting over the hump, and you just knew that they were a team on a mission this year. With like you said, everyone had their role and they fit it perfectly. A great move by the organization was to move Stevens from coach to management. Just as he knows what he's doing in terms of building around a team, but the head coach hiring was phenomenal, and like you said, he's been incredible. He's been one of the guys. And it's been great for the team. But going back to that Jimmy Butler shot, I agree. It's not a bad shot. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. You could say there's 18 seconds on the clock. Maybe take a little bit of time off, drive to the net. But like you said, they tie that game. They go to overtime. He's played 48 minutes. He doesn't want to go overtime. He's dead. So it's not a bad shot. He also hit that shot earlier in the game. And as much as everyone likes to say, oh, he was shooting 29%, percentages are irrelevant when it's a wide open shot and it's the best player on the team. Al Horford's backing up. He's taking that 3 10 times out of 10. And his teammates, I love that his teammates backed him up for the shot, as they should. He's the best player. And like you said, he was the reason they were there. So you really can't blame him for taking it. Maybe, I think personally, take a little bit of time off the clock so that Boston doesn't have a chance to get the ball back. Maybe look for a Strus. Maybe get a Duncan Robinson on the court to take a 3, even though he didn't play much in the series. But yeah, it's not the wrong decision. It's your best player, a guy putting up ridiculous numbers in this playoffs, taking a 3, an open 3, and he missed it. It's tough. It came up a bit short, and that just goes to show the fatigue. When you're feeling tired, you come up a little bit short. So it's a tough play. But yeah, like you said, if he hits that shot, they're going crazy for him. They're going absolutely nuts. So it's tough for him, but the Heat are going to come back better. Obviously, Lowry talked about it was a waste of a season. I'm not huge on that, but at the same time, you get it. It's that competitive mentality of like, I want to win every single game, and if we don't, it's a waste. And I get it. At the same time, you have to be happy about what you accomplished. It's something that Joe Burrow kind of alluded to earlier about, he didn't win the Super Bowl and he didn't sulk about it. He was happy about what they accomplished that season and what they can do in the future. So kind of the same scenario here. I think the Heat are going to be back. Do they need another star? I don't think they need one. I think getting one is obviously going to complement your team a lot better. But a guy like Adebayo, he showed like when he can have a big game, he is that star. Obviously on the defensive end, he's great, but I think he needs to shoot a bit more. When he had, I can't remember if it was game 3 or 4, but he put up like 26 points, something like that. He had a great game, and it was the game where Jimmy missed the second half, and people thought they were going to fall apart, and he just kind of took it over. Yeah, he took over the game, and he's able to do that. And like in the 2020 playoffs, he did that too. Jimmy will say it himself that he was the best player on the team at that time. So in the last 2 years, I wouldn't say he's dropped off. Obviously, Butler's rose a lot, and Dragic was incredible during that playoff run as well. But Adebayo needs to take it to that next step because he can be an incredible player for years to come. He's one of the best centers in the league for sure. But yeah, he kind of needs to get over that hump at this point. But what a series it was. I'm so excited to see the Celtics move on to the final. Obviously, Tatum's one of my favorite players. On the other side, Curry's another one of my favorites. So it's going to be cool to see. But this series is going to be an absolute battle. How do you think it goes? I have Celtics in 7. They've been the best team in the NBA since the new year. I said that earlier. And I think with the way that they play defense, they can play defense however, according to the team that they're playing. Against Milwaukee, they clogged the paint. Against Giannis, Giannis still got his huge numbers, but it took him a lot more to get to those numbers, a lot more shots to get to that 30-point mark. And they just made him work hard for every single basket. And you get to Miami where they're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the regular season, kind of shut them down throughout the series. Like, yeah, they missed open shots, but overall they played great defense throughout the series and throughout these playoffs. And not to mention what they did to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So with the way that they play defense, I think they're going to try to take Stephen Curry out of this series. So it's going to be up to the other guys. And Golden State has guys who are more than able to take over a series and to take over a game and win games for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State won this series. Obviously, they've won 3 in the past 10 years. So I just have a lot of belief in Boston.
I have a belief that the shots that Dallas didn't hit, that Boston will hit those shots. And they have that solidified number 2 scorer behind Tatum and Brown. So I think that Tatum and Brown will have to take on more playmaking duties in this series, because I think they're going to try to double them on the drive. So it's going to be up to the other guys to make those open threes, and I think they'll be able to do that. They've answered every call this postseason, so I don't think it's going to stop here, because the way this series has been kind of marketed and hyped up is like the old versus the new. Boston's been in big games. They've been in 3 conference finals over the last 4 years, so they're battle tested. The finals is different, but they have that experience of being in big games and having to play under pressure. So I'm gonna take Boston in 7.
Yeah, that's a very fair pick. Yeah, I mean, it's tough which way to choose. I mean, I like the comment about experience. I don't think it's that important because, like you said, Boston's been battle tested. They've been, deep in playoff runs before, but it is 123 finals appearances finals games compared to 0 in Boston. So obviously the Warriors have the advantage there, but at the same time, like I said, Boston's been through it. When I look at the defensive matchups of it, the way the Warriors played Doncic and, allowing him to kind of do his own thing, are they going to let Tatum do that? I think, it's important with Doncic, they let him force it, and then they kicked to the outside and they allowed guys to miss shots. On Boston, I don't think that's something they're going to be able to do, because Boston's one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. They're clutch knocking down shots. So you're going to have to attack everybody. Obviously, I think Draymond will probably be the primary defender on Tatum, but you got a guy like Wiggins that could switch up on him. Someone that it's important, Gary Payton II, they're probably going to get back later in this playoff series. I think that's going to be massive for them, especially in terms of perimeter defending. The fact that he's been able to come back as fast as he is remarkable, and his ability to regroup. I couldn't find the word there, but yeah, it's going to be tough. And with the Warriors, we talk about how they'll defend the Celtics. How are the Celtics going to stop the Warriors? Because obviously you'll have a guy like Smart on Curry, you'll have Brown on Clay, even though he's not too mobile, but you got to shut down that shot. Who's going to be the guy to, Poole and Wiggins are going to be the ones that can be the X factors for the Warriors. They're guys that can put up 20 on any given night. I think Poole will average 18. Wiggins will probably average like 16 or 17. Who's going to stop them? And obviously, as good as Boston is defensively, you got to throw a guy all over the place. You can't allow open shooting. Like you said, against the Nets, they clog the paint. Against the Bucks, they clog the paint. Against the Heat, they clog the paint. Against the Warriors, you clog the paint. You're allowing 3-point shooters just to knock it down. And the Warriors are ultimate opportunists. They're going to take advantage. You got to shut them down. You got to kind of open up the middle. And that will be beneficial for them because the Warriors don't have a true big aside from Looney, but it's going to be super tough to defend them.
I think the difference is between who Golden State has played up to this point in Boston is Boston just has more bodies. Like you mentioned, Brown and Smart, but Tatum's a great defender too.
Yeah.
So is Grant Williams. So is Derek White. So I don't really have a huge problem with who they have to defend Golden State. I think, and they're also a great team defense. They don't just have individual defenders. Like they play as a team. They play collectively on defense. So they have a great scheme, which stems from Udoka. So I don't think that's a huge issue. Obviously, Golden State is still going to get theirs. They're a great offensive team, but I think they'll be able to stop them enough to where, Boston will be able to take advantage. Because I'm also looking at who they play to get to this point. Boston had a much tougher road to get to this point than Golden State did. Golden State played Jokic and the Nuggets. Jokic had a great run, but obviously Porter and Murray weren't there. Nobody really thought that they were going to be able to beat Golden State. And then the Memphis series, I feel like, would have been a lot more competitive if Ja was healthy. It's a lot of what ifs. Like, what if Dylan Brooks didn't get suspended, but it was a dirty play, so you can't really flip that. But I think if he was healthy, in game 1, they're a missed layup away from taking that game. Memphis was. So I think Boston's just been more impressive so far throughout the postseason, to me at least, which kind of makes me – and throughout the whole second half of the season as well. So that kind of makes me want to pick Boston over Golden State. But I mean, you talked about experience, you talked about, all the guys that Golden State has to score, which you can't overlook that. So I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if Golden State won. But with all that being said, I'm going to take Boston in 7.
Yeah, and that's very fair. And I think you said it best. The matchups they've had, Boston's had a much tougher road. So they've been battle tested. They know exactly what's going to come at them in this series. And I think they faced maybe the toughest competition. I don't think obviously it's tough to say who the best team in the league is. You'd think they're the 2 finalists, but I mean, the Bucks and the Heat are, 2 teams that could have went to the finals themselves. So to be able to beat them and to obviously beat the Heat in 7 on the road, beat the Bucks game 6 and 7 on the road, 6 on the road. It's incredibly impressive. And on the side of the Warriors, like you said, again, a depleted Nuggets team, a depleted Grizzlies team, and a not so stellar Dallas team that was primarily led by Luka. So this is a much different story for the Warriors, and it's going to be tough. It's probably the toughest series that they're going to have to face in the next coming years, I think, just because of how good Boston is defensively and how good they are as a team. But for me, as much as I can say Boston can win this series, it can go 7. My heart lies with the Warriors. I got to go Warriors in 6, because I think as much as experience doesn't truly matter as much, because Boston's been so deep in playoff runs, I think just having that many guys being in the finals, having a guy like Stephen Curry, who hasn't won the finals MVP before, he's going to bring that intensity to another level. A guy like Klay Thompson that's been gone for a couple years now. This is his first finals back since 2019 getting hurt. It's a vengeance tour for him. And then you got guys like Poole and Wiggins, who they have that chip on their shoulder. They want to prove themselves. And I think they will. And then another guy like Draymond, he's had I think he's always underrated. And yet somehow he's overhyped at the same time. Yeah. But I'd say primarily underrated, because he does so much for that team that people don't even see. As much as we talk about Marcus Smart being the heart of the Celtics, Draymond Green is the heart of the Warriors. And that scrappiness is going to be very exciting to watch. I think we're going to get a lot of back and forth from some of these guys, and it's going to be really cool. We know both teams can play under pressure and both teams can play under scrutiny. So it really just comes down to who's the better basketball team. And which is making me, rethink my opinion, because I honestly think the better basketball team is Boston. But I'm going to go with the Warriors. I got to stick with the heart. My brain, I don't know. My brain's thinking so. I'm going hard. Warriors in 6.
Should be a great series, though, I think. I just hope it's not blowout after blowout like we've been seeing lately in the conference finals and really throughout the playoffs. So I just hope it's a great series, some close games come down to the wire. But before we wrap up, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the NHL playoffs. The conference finals are set. You got Tampa Bay and New York, and you got Colorado versus Edmonton. That series is very exciting because you have the 2 best players in the world going at it. So, take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's McDavid versus McKinnon. For the first time in a while, the NHL has done a pretty damn good job of marketing it. As much as the players themselves will be humble and say, no, it's about the team, it's about the team. McDavid, McKinnon. I mean, what more could you want? I think they're, like you said, I think they're the 2 best players in the league as well. And this series is going to be fun. At the beginning of the playoffs, I said it was going to be a Colorado-Tampa Bay final. I still think that. I think as good as Edmonton has been, and to beat Calgary was incredibly impressive, because they were so well built for the playoffs. It was insane. And to beat them in 5 or 6 is remarkable. To win the games on the road, it was massive. And McDavid has impressed me so much beyond belief. I mean, as much as people talk about his speed, his finesse, his ability to shoot, his intelligence, his fight and his dog and his intensity has been what has propelled him this season. Because he didn't have, I can't say that he didn't have it before, but he's brought it to another level now where every single play, he's not giving up the puck. He's kind of been like Crosby, of just like, you're not taking the puck off this guy and you're not going to knock him down. He's staying on his feet. So it's incredibly hard to take it away from him. But yeah, he's having quite the run. But at the same time, I think Colorado's just built for this. It's been a long run for them. We talked about the Celtics getting over the hump. The Avalanche, it's their time. They finally make the conference finals, and we'll see what they can do. But I think Colorado takes it in 6. And on the other side, Tampa versus the Rangers. As good as the Rangers are, this series for me is built as goalie versus goalie. Vasilevsky, one of the best goalies in the league for the last couple of years, and Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers will win the Vezina, and was nominated for MVP, which he could honestly take that home, but it's very tough when you're going against McDavid and a 60-goal scorer in Matthews. But it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be very low scoring, I think, obviously with two great goalies. That's what it's all about in the playoffs. But Tampa Bay, once again, they've won 2 in a row. Maroon on that team's won 3 in a row. I think they're primed for another finals appearance. It's going to be tough to score on them with the amount of defense and leadership that they have. The leadership is one of the biggest things. Obviously, you got Stamkos, you got Kucherov. You could talk about Hedman, but guys like McDonough, he was a former captain of the Rangers. So they got guys that are just ready to go and primed for it. So I think it'll be a Tampa-Colorado final. And this, as much as I think Colorado's the best team in the league, I still think they got to get over that hump. And I think Tampa three-peats and Maroon wins his 4th in a row. But this playoffs is going to be really telling, this Final Four of these guys, because if Edmonton can win it, then McDavid easily has to be put up in that upper echelon of the greatest players of all time, with Gretzky, with Lemieux, with Crosby, with Howe, with Orr. And on the other side of that, Cale Makar on defense, I think he can go down as the greatest defenseman ever play the game. He's quicker than about everybody. He's got a phenomenal shot. He's very smart. So when it's all said and done, he could be up there as well.
And even you told me that Gretzky was saying that he's like the best he's ever seen or something like that, right?
I think it was the second round, maybe the first round, but he took like 11 shots. For a defenseman to take 11 shots is absurd, but they were good shots. They were smart shots, and he shut it down on defense. And Gretzky said that was the greatest performance he had ever seen from a defenseman. So that's pretty high praise. And to be able to be on a team with McKinnon, Rantanen, with a great captain in Landeskog, it's going to be interesting. And I think really who will be the best goaltender in that series is going to be important, because teams are going to be able to run it up on each other. I think this will be very high scoring and high intensity, where on the other side, I think it's going to be very physical, very low scoring, who can squeeze it out. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, this is one of the best playoffs we've seen in a while. And the marketing has been pretty damn good, because they've struggled in the past of marketing the players. And it's obviously, you can knock the NHL on it, but at the same time, it just comes down to its players. They're just, I don't want to like, they're more humble than other sports. It's just the way they are. They don't want to boast about themselves. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing about other sports. But you're not going to get Sidney Crosby going up to Ovechkin and saying, I'm the best in the world. He's going to say, I'm going to go out there and fight with my team. So it's tough to market that, but they've done a pretty good job. You got to hand it to them.
Yeah. But yeah, there's great matchups across both sports. Obviously, NBA Finals, and we have the conference finals of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Should be great to watch on both sides there. So with that, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below who you think will win the NBA Finals, and we will see you all next week. Take it easy.
Stay well.
Peace.